What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, it's a little mailbag time. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered right here on the show. Again, just my name, 2 Fs. We will start with Sean. Been listening to your podcast religiously for the last year. I appreciate that. It's kind of embarrassing, but I just realized I'd not liked and subscribed yet. Well, we know we got to do that. Anyway, Charger fan. My question is about Gregg Roman. I love what Harbaugh's brought to the table, and it looks like Jesse Minter is going to go down the same path as McDonald in Seattle. But I worry about the offense. It seems like Roman couldn't figure out whether he wanted to run heavy offense or let it rip. He didn't exactly develop Lamar during his first years while OC in Baltimore, which is concerning. Was he actually a good OC on the Niners with Cap and Alex, or was the team so freakishly talented that any dude off the street could have ran the offense? Is he just another Norv Turner from the Cowboy dynasty? Subpar play caller, but had a loaded roster. That's a good question. He's a very polarizing individual. I remember his last year with the Niners, and that ended up being Harbaugh's last year too. Trent Baalke's daughter tweeted, I think, fire Gregg Roman. So everyone thought that, like, well, if she's saying that, you know that Trent believes that. Obviously, I would say, listen, he is a big reason I think Alex looked solid, and then he changed the offense completely for Kaepernick. And then they ran, his ability to utilize that offense for Lamar, won him an MVP. So I think Gregg Roman is better than he's talked about. Now, is he... If we did an OC draft of coaches that are either head coaches or just the OCs, he's not going to go in the top 10. But, here's the thing with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a former quarterback, an offensive guy, in theory, yet he can't call the plays. It's very rare that someone in his position, a former quarterback, is not the play caller. But Jim Harbaugh is basically John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, Dan Campbell, Pete Carroll. I mean, he's like a organizational leader, rah-rah guy. Rah-rah sounds negative. I mean that in a positive way. But he swears by this guy. So I think Gregg Roman's probably better than he gets credit for. But I do think he is going to be under the microscope this year heading into the season. But also Jim Harbaugh's philosophy is running the ball. So, while Jim is not calling play in, play out the plays, there is no doubt in my mind that he's often on the headset let's run it here. Let's run it here. And what did they just do? They drafted a running back in the first round. So I would get ready for the running game to thrive. What they had in Baltimore, what they had in San Francisco, elite run game. 49ers were one of the better running teams in the league with Frank Gore. And they definitely were in Baltimore with Lamar winning the MVP, and they will be, I would imagine, with Hampton in that running game. And now, what are they? They basically drafted a running back in the first round, and they also signed Najee. So they got 2 guys they plan on running down your throat. How is it possible, this is from another Sean, that the Dolphins are going to have another season with a below-average backup quarterback? Tua's injuries have completely derailed the previous seasons and left the team utterly unwatchable. Knowing the injury history, they're going to go into a season with Zach Wilson, who got beat out by Jarrett Stidham in Denver, and 7th round Quinn Ewers. Make it make sense. I can't. I don't know what to tell you. I feel you as a Dolphins fan, but I think it's going to get really, really ugly. Really, really ugly. And then brighter days could be ahead. Big fan of the pod. Currently, as I drive through Davis, California on my way to Sacramento, it reminded me of how you said you grew up here. I know you used to live in NorCal. How would you compare life up there to Arizona in terms of lifestyle, cost, and overall vibe? Also, curious to hear your take as a Saints fan. With their current quarterback situation looking shaky, do you think it makes sense to trade Kamara while he still has value to gain more draft capital? What's your prediction for the team's direction over the next few years? Yeah, born and raised in Davis. Spent 18 years of my life. I'd go back. My brother and mom lived there. It's way different than the way I grew up. And I would say just Northern California feels a little different than the Northern California I grew up in the 90s. Um, I the vibes I comparing it to the vibes here. I mean, I'd put the vibes here are just elite. I mean, I would put the vibes in Scottsdale, Arizona up against any. Lifestyle, I would say somewhat similar. Um, the West Coast lifestyle is just, I would say, pretty transferable to California. Never been to Vegas or lived in Vegas, but I would imagine Vegas has similar in Arizona. Kind of just the culture of us as humans. Cost of living, it probably just depends on where you live. I mean, there are areas that are outrageously expensive, and then there are areas that are really cheap. The biggest difference is the taxes. So I'd say, yeah. I mean, the Kamara thing, I would my guess is the Saints are not going to be any good. It's going to be a rough year. When your quarterback situation is Shuck, Rattler, and and Jake Haener, who's my guy, by the way. I like Jake Haener. I don't know if he's an NFL quarterback, but my guy Mark, who invited me to this golf tournament that I've been at basically Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which was incredible. Playing with like Phil Mickelson's teammates from college. The vibes there were really, really high. I mean, some good people. I've been to a couple of these, uh, invited over the years to Country Club, one in the Bay Area, one here. I'd say I put the vibes of the Arizona one. Some former NFL guys. It was just, it was strong. It was, the booze was flowing. Uh, it was sweet. But Mark, who invited me, who's a member out there, uh, his sons play college football. He played college football back at San Diego, probably 20 plus years ago, and he coached a little in this area. And he coached guys like Mark Andrews, and he was saying by far the best players he's ever seen in high school were Bijan Robinson, who is like was like watching fucking Jim Brown in his prime playing high school. It was stupid, and Spencer Rattler. He's like, I'm, and this guy, I mean, played college football, so he grew up in Chicago. He's been around football for a long time. His son was a Division I recruit, playing Division I football now. Like, I value what this guy's take because I remember watching the Netflix thing. I'm like, this guy's just too douchey. But he was saying he was really sweet, like really, really good. And then his career just got derailed at Oklahoma, and then he kind of resurrected it last year or 2 years ago at South Carolina. Then he had a lot of momentum going into the Saints year, but then obviously he's not going to beat out Derek. But then he started playing, and it was kind of weird. But you're like, how bad was the coaching? I wonder if Spencer Rattler could beat out Shuck, or it's impossible because Kellen Moore is going to want Shuck to be the guy. Situation is just weird. I know that the GM is a political position, but I cannot wrap my head around how Grier still has a job in Miami. He is the only GM hired before 21 that doesn't have a playoff win, and all seven GMs with a longer tenure have been to a Super Bowl. He had 5 first-round picks over 2 years and didn't draft one all-pro player. He's mismanaged contracts. His coaching hires are jokes, and clearly other GMs take advantage of him. How do guys like him keep their jobs? That's and then he ended it with, and apparently they don't usually. I would say more than a coach because a coach's work is just so evident on game day, and game day is where they pay the bills, even though the GM has a huge say. But GMs get to watch the game typically with the owner, so they can blame everything on the coach. So it's easy to blame it on Mike McDaniel or Vic Fangio or the D coordinator or how they're using guys or Tyreek Hill's attitude, right? And you never blame yourself because I'm in total agreement. He's done a horrendous job. I mean, he really has. I mean, it's just like, what is going on here? I think the come to Jesus moment for the franchise though is I'm telling you, I'm all in on it being really really ugly this year. Now I can't speak. I don't know the guy. I don't know Stephen Ross. Bizarre place clearly. If I wanted to defend Grier, I have come around to maybe agreeing with like I don't think you can win there. I think it's impossible to win in Miami. I just don't think it's possible. Now, maybe if they had Sean McVay, would they have a better chance? Of course. But is that a place where you can sustain winning? I think we have a long enough kind of resume now in of the internet era that like you're just not winning there. So maybe it's you could replace Grier with the next guy. Like if they had Howie Roseman, would they have a better chance? Of course. But I do think it's much easier to build winning teams in Green Bay, in Philadelphia, in New England. It's kind of proven. There's just a lot going on for good, rich, young. I said good looking, rich, in shape people in Miami that are famous. Clearly, the fuck around factor there is really really high. The NBA 82 game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw dropping plays. Can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through the finals. Now, the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been your go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will Curry drop 30? Will LeBron drop 40 or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and let's make the playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Why do the Steelers continue to not see the light and adapt to the modern NFL philosophy of offense wins championships? Do you think it'll take them being really bad to finally cave and legitimately invest in the quarterback position? They just stockpile of picks. They have possibly move off TJ Watt or Minkah Fitzpatrick. Big fan of the show. Well, I mean, I'll never forget when Arians was fired from the Steelers for not running the ball. So we can blame Tomlin, but like the culture in that organization goes back to the 70s. Right? The culture of the Cowboys is how do we strike a deal? How do we get some star player for a fourth round pick? Well, Jerry, you don't. That's not the way it works. If you want to get some legit player, pay them some cash on the open market. You're not going to trade for George Pickens and think like, God, we got a steal here. Every team in the league could have had the guy. They all said no. So it's like Jerry is the reason that they make some of these crazy deals. And ultimately, beside a couple guys on their team, don't spend that much cash. But the thing with the Cowboys, like everyone just blames Jerry. Where I think you get some of these other places, Tomlin takes a lot of shit. It's like, you don't think Tomlin looks around and like Baltimore has went from like basically they were the Steelers 2.0 and then they've just completely changed with Lamar. Cincinnati got Joe Burrow and they throw it all the time. You don't think he realizes that? I do think you could argue it's like the Rooney's organizational philosophy is old school toughness defense, which I'm all for. Like that's never going to go out of style, right? There are certain things in any walk of life that are always going to work. You know, I will teach my child to look someone in the eye and shake their hand, right? Just like, are you going to shake less hands in 2040 than you would have in 1980? Probably. But that to me, that's never going old. You could argue like the thank you note. I mean, shit, we got a to-do list that we have got to attack here. Thank you note for our wedding. Could you argue the thank you note little outdated? Right? I mean, do I need a thank you note or email or text message work? Probably. But again, the thank you note still has a lot of power. Is the thank you note going to exist in 20 years? Maybe not. But I never fault anyone for teaching their child or writing a thank you note, right? There is power behind it, right? I do think you could look at the Rooneys and go like, I do understand what you see, but like, what are we doing, guys? Because if the Rooneys told everybody like, hey, We need to take a quarterback high. Now, maybe they'd argue we did that a couple years ago and it blew up in our face. I'd say, yeah, it was Kenny Pickett. Question for the bag. What's up with the whole JJ is a handoff merchant narrative? Even if that's the case, the Vikings would still be the perfect fit for him. Upgraded O line, two starting caliber backs, and the quarterback whisperer. I think it's just because they are depending on a guy that in big games against the best teams, you get to 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 12, 2nd and long against the Green Bay Packers in a tie game in the fourth quarter. This is not like in Michigan, they out talented everybody. It's just what Mac Jones did, the same thing with Saban. We just have better players than you. And in the NFL, the Vikings are loaded. Their roster, man for man, is one of the best in the league. But, like, you're still going to make some passes. And he comes from an offense that didn't rely on him to do that. So, can he do that? Obviously, physically, he can make the passes, but is he going to be comfortable doing that? Big picture, you like develop that guy totally. But what makes his situation unique is like, if I told you, if you're a Vikings fan and said you're one and done in the playoffs, that'd be pretty disappointing. I'm not saying that your aspirations are win the Super Bowl this year, but it's like be in the mix for the NFC Championship game. Standard, I would say the expectations and the ambitions of the fans and the team are pretty high. A lot of rookie quarterbacks get to kind of fly under the radar. He does not. Like for example, if Tyler Shuck wins the job for the Saints, they could win 4 games. He throws 25 touchdowns. It's a successful year. It's not even about the stats with JJ. It's about winning and making big plays and not throwing picks and making big passes. Like it's an intense environment. Even if that's 2 or 3 passes a game, obviously he's going to throw more than that. But I'm just saying, like there are going to be 2 or 3 passes in the second half. They're going to be highly scrutinized. What's your opinion on the Kyren Williams contract situation? The Rams in recent history haven't paid their running backs big money since Gurley. No chance they're paying him. Zero. I would imagine, which is the right business move. You just play out this season. If he has a huge bounce back and can hold on to the ball, maybe you would entertain franchising him. Probably not, but yeah, just he's running back, solid player. Draft another one. Long time listener. I mean, I actually like him. Fumbling issues. Like to me, if you have bad hands, right? You see some of these receivers, they just don't have good hands. Like that's usually maybe you can like incrementally small, minute details improve. Like from, if 1 to 10, if your hands are a 4, maybe over the course of several years you can turn them into a 5. But you're never gonna have hands like Chris Carter, right? Marvin Harrison. Like your hands are always going to be average. I do think fumbling is something that can be fixed. We saw it with Tiki Barber. Like fumbling is something that you can actively work to correct. So point of pressure. Listen, I'm the running back coach, but I do feel more confident in fixing a fumbling issue than working on certain things. Like if you're a 4.6 guy, you're never going to be a 4.4 guy. Like you're always going to be slow relative to the NFL, right? To me, fumbling is something like I do think it's a tangible, specific thing that you can work on. And there are coaching points, and we've just actually seen it. Just like accuracy with quarterbacks. Some guys are going to be inaccurate, but there are definitely ways that you can help that out with better footwork, uh, more rhythm, more understanding of the offense. Lifetime Saints fan. I bleed black and gold. Personally, think the Saints are primed to be a dark horse in the South this year. I think a guy with a lot of upside and elite traits like Shuck really takes their quarterback room to a new level. Also, I think the Brandon Staley hire will pay dividends come mid-year. Thoughts? I think you just have so much unknown with the quarterback. Uh, he is old, right? So he's a lot of experience coming into the year. We saw Bo Nix. It shouldn't be too big for him. He's played in big programs. He's played in big games. He's seen it all. So there's a maturity coming if you use Nix as an example. I would use Penix as an example too, but Penix only got to start the last couple games. If Penix had started the whole season, I do think him and Nix were just like plug and play ready. Now, I don't mean plug and play ready to be sweet. I just mean plug and play ready. I like Penix. and I'm rooting for Penix, but sitting Penix makes no sense. Like he was ready to roll. Tyler Shuck, ready to roll. But how good you're going to be, very dependent on who's around you. They do have Kamara. Chris Olave is a good player. The one dude, 22, who got hurt at the end of the year, can fly playmaker. He's interesting. Their tight end's pretty good. They've invested multiple first round picks these last 2 years in offensive linemen. Banks and the Oregon State kid last year is good. So they've invested a lot in that unit, and they got an offensive head coach who's going to call the plays. So yeah, I mean, I think the offense, if the quarterback is good, which is an unknown, I wouldn't bet on him being good. I wouldn't bet on him necessarily being bad. If you told me he's just solid, I'd believe you. Like he's just a starter in the league for 5 or 6 years. I think that's believable. But I do think the Saints defense, like I think Brandon Staley's pretty overrated. I think he got a lot of credit for the Rams, who have a loaded defense. I got news for you. Anyone who's the defensive coordinator of the Rams is good. Why? They have good players. They scout well. They have a good organizational philosophy of toughness. And he did it 1 year with like the greatest player, one of them in the history of the league in the prime of his career, and Jalen Ramsey, who was in the prime of his career. What we witnessed in with the Chargers was embarrassing. And then I saw another coach come in that knows what he's doing, and their defense was good. So to me, the offense, I would be more bullish on your guys' offense than I would be on Brandon Staley in the defense. Dennis Allen is a much better defensive coach than Brandon Staley. What's up, man? Big fan. I've got two questions for you. First, big Lions fan. How do you think we should approach upgrading the defense while keeping space out of our star players' extensions? I feel like we need another true edge rusher. Curious how you manage that balance. My second question is more personal. This time next year, I'll have my bachelor's in computer science. I have an internship lined up that'll pay really well after a year, but I won't be making money in the beginning and really don't want to move back home. I've also been considering just jumping into the job right after graduation to stay independent. What's your opinion? Uh, Let me start with your second question. I didn't make very much money early on, and I was just, you had to like focus on the big picture. One thing I knew, and this is no shot at my parents who did an awesome job and couldn't have been any more supportive emotionally, just over the course of my life, and supported me in it, whatever I wanted to do. Like, me going into football, this was not like, I didn't grow up in the Shanahan's household. My dad was a farmer. My mom worked at the state capitol. I mean, it wasn't like, you should do that. Most people was like, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Obviously, I wasn't smart enough to do either of those or have any interest. But my point is, like, it would have been easy for them to be like, what are you doing? But I did. And again, no shade at them. I was never, ever, ever moving back in once I left. When I went to college, I was never coming back home. That was never an option. So for me, the number one thing, like I could never live with them. Again, once I left, I was gone. Your boy was out spreading his wings. Now, whether I had to live in the shittiest apartment, whether I had to do whatever I had to do, I also like, I mean, while some of my friends were doing well, traveling and partying in their mid 20s, like I worked a lot. It didn't bother me. Now it's a little different day and age. Internet wasn't quite as strong in terms of social media, so your FOMO. I enjoyed what I did, but like my life was a little different than some people. And if you can stomach like having a little shitty start, but do it on your own, I do think there's a lot of it's impossible to quantify, but I do think the benefits for your self confidence after that are pretty strong. And it's like I just needed my own. I couldn't go from college doing whatever I wanted whenever I wanted to ever going back there. It wasn't happening. I understand some people. I also never worked in that area necessarily, so it wasn't even something that was on the table. But if that's something that means a lot to you, don't do it and figure out a way. And if that means living a little crappier situation for a year, I think you'll look back and it'll make for a good story and you'll be glad that you do that. The Lions, I mean, they drafted defensive tackle in this draft, right? I mean, they've drafted multiple front seven players around Hutchinson over the last couple of years. I mean, that's part of the way the sport works. I mean, I thought, hey, if Myles Garrett gets traded, if Max Crosby gets traded, the Lions should go all in. Well, not only did neither of them get traded, they got a combined like $250 million in guaranteed dollars. So I don't even know what they should. I mean, you can't get mad at them for not trading for those guys. They weren't even available. I think the Lions are fine. And let me hammer that home again. Find a way. Don't move in with your parents. Back in. And I understand it's like a lot of people do it. And listen, sometimes you don't have a choice. But if you have a job that can pay, just keep your head above water and you got to eat ramen. Like you don't always have to live great. I know everyone on Instagram thinks everyone's living like a king. That's just not the fact of life. Big fan of the pod. Question: could you see a world where the Vikings win 14 games with JJ McCarthy? I believe he's about 80% of advertised. It's certainly possible. Improved defense with Flores returning, an improved offensive line and run game, as well as arguably a top five receiver. Am I insane, or is just another year of media underrating the Vikings? Well, I would say if you had a top 10 quarterback on your team, you are, competing for the one seed. Sam Darnold last year was a top 10 quarterback in the NFC or in the NFL, and you competed for the one seed right up until the last regular season game. And your team's on paper is even better. Now, I would say, and I think you guys would agree, relatively healthy, right? You lost your left tackle. I forget which week that was, 8, 10, 12. But for the most part, like Jefferson, your defensive guys, uh, did Addison get injured? I don't think he really did. I think you guys were mostly healthy. So, assuming health, if JJ just has to be like a top 15 quarterback and you're winning 12, 13 games. The thing is, it's a great unknown. Like, what's he going to look like on the road week 3 in Chicago and it's raining? I don't know. There's just no way to know. Congrats. Happy Fugazi Friday. Got a mailbag question. I'm a high volume NFL best ball player. Shout out to your sponsor, DK. Do you foresee any macro changes to the NFL strategy that could lead to micro edges in fantasy? For example, more running or more passing than in recent years, more rotations and committees at running back versus more workhorse roles. I actually think the workhorse kind of back. You just saw Hampton get drafted in the first round. Like I know they signed Najee Harris. Like that guy's going to have a massive workload these next couple years. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, he gets all the touches. Saquon Barkley gets all the touches, right? So you could argue the running game or shifting. Sean Payton is so excited for that UCF running back. The Steelers just drafted from Iowa. That guy's going to be good. Caleb Johnson. That guy's a really good player. So I do think we're going to see a lot more guys get heavy workloads. And the run game, because in the NFL, the rules, for passing, one, if your quarterback situation is just somewhat questionable, the easiest way to help them out is a running game. And it's because of the rules and the physicality of the game has changed a little bit. The line of scrimmage, offensive line, defensive line, is the one area where you can get after it. And if you draft well and you build a good offensive line, like you can run the ball down people's throats. That's why the Eagles did it. It's why the 49ers with their scheme do it. I mean, look at Cook with the Bills. So I think that we're getting, I don't want to say a renaissance, but I think teams are much more inclined to ride these guys. Now, the hard part is in fantasy, I'm not a huge fantasy guy. I played a little DFS in my day, but haven't you guys always, and I don't even know what best ball is, but like, don't you guys always draft running backs pretty highly? It's not like they're an undervalued position. So I do think the lead back's coming back. Speaking of the lead back, question for the mailbag. What did you think of the Chargers? I know some didn't like them taking Hampton in the first round, but I think he fits perfectly. Also, at the end of the wild card loss to the Texans, said that he felt they did Herbert a disservice, and I think with the offensive players they chose over the weekend will really elevate the offense. I feel like some are sleeping on them. What do you think? Think about Harbaugh's success, post Andrew Luck, which he had, I mean, as a full time starter, I think for 1 year, then he left, and then Shaw got him. But with the 49ers, Frank Gore played a huge, huge role for Jim Harbaugh's success. I think Jim Harbaugh still to this day calls Frank Gore like his favorite NFL player ever. So if I go to Frank Gore, his stat page, I bet in 2011, when Harbaugh gets there, he runs for 1,200 yards, 1,200 yards, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. But he also catches 17, 28, and 16. He actually caught the ball less than he did. That's actually something to keep an eye on. I wonder if Gregg Roman is going to throw the ball to the running back. At the time, the 49ers, they had multiple running backs, but Frank Gore is a pretty good pass. They honestly probably underutilized him in the passing game, but I would imagine that, I mean, it's gonna work. And then look at Michigan. I mean, his best team had Corum, Gus Edwards, not Gus Edwards. Who was the running back? I think 2023 Michigan football stats. What was that kid's name? Not Gus Edwards. Rushing. Donovan Edwards, who I think had a bad injury. I don't think he got drafted. Blake Corum had 27 touchdowns. Blake Corum's stats essentially look like Frank Gore. 28 carries. This is in 2023. 15 games, 258 carries, 1,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, 16 catches. They did throw the ball. I don't think the Chargers are going to throw the ball as much to Hampton, and they throw it to whoever the back, maybe Najee. Something to keep an eye on. Hampton's going to work. Hampton's going to be good. Okay, last question. So I think the Giants had a good draft, better than people think. Dart won't start this year, barring any major circumstance, but I think the kid can play. What are your thoughts on Skattebo? I was around a lot of Arizona State guys the last couple days. I mean, diehards. I mean, dudes that have been around the program before Tillman and Plummer got there. They talk about Skattebo like he's Jim Brown or Walter Payton. I mean, his season for the people around this program, um, he's a really, really big deal. And I got asked a lot about what I thought. And I said, because a lot of these guys, are rooting for him. But I think the question I constantly heard of Skattebo was like, well, he just runs over everybody. How is that going to translate to the NFL? And I say, historically, it's a risky proposition drafting running backs that run guys over. It's like drafting wide receivers that just only catch contested balls. That's something in the NFL. It's like it gets a lot harder to do. And I would agree that the contested thing is still a big red flag. If that's most of your plays, not a route run or whatever, you just body guys up. Like if you just think this is the next DeAndre Hopkins, probably not. It's like this is the next Draymond Green. Yeah, we've heard that for a decade, and none of them turned out to be. To me, Skattebo, his short area quickness is excellent, and he has great hands. But like the NFL, if this was 2000 or 1993, I'd be like, he's not going to be able to run these guys over. These guys are just bigger and stronger than him. But think about the NFL now. Most of these linebackers don't weigh 260, 270 pounds. You're not seeing Ken Norton Jr. in the hole. Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green aren't chasing you down. So the size of the guys you're running over, I think the 49ers drafted a guy from Oklahoma State that was like 225 pounds. The game, and Howie Roseman talked about this after the draft, it's a speed and space game. So a guy like Skattebo actually benefits from a lot of smaller, quicker guys on the field. Now they can run him down, but if they're meeting him in the hole, I like his chances. So I actually think his style, now, is he going to have a 15-year career? I don't know. But is he going to play in the league? 1,000%. And listen, it's sometimes when you try to dunk over guys, you get the ball blocked. He's going to try to run some guys over, and he is going to get hit hard. He's also going to light some dudes up because some of these, even the safeties now are, how many, there's Cam Chancellor isn't in the NFL. There's no John Lynch or Steve Atwater coming down the hole to fucking light him up. Look at the size of these safeties that are drafted over the last couple of years. They're not as big. Kyle Hamilton is an outlier. So I actually think the league, the dynamics of the size benefits Skattebo. And I forget the guy's name. It's been a long couple days boozing. a lot of sun, and I'm just out of football mode. But the rookie they drafted last year from the Giants is a good player, the rookie. I think Skattebo is going to be good. They're going to have a good running back room. Their running back room is going to be solid. Uh, I'm still a little surprised they picked up Kayvon's fifth year option. I don't think every team in the league would have done that, but uh, I'm bullish on Skattebo. Again, shorter term career. You know, if you said over under how many years does he play in the NFL, like 5.5, you know, I might take the under. I'm not expecting like a 10-year run. I'm not expecting Frank Gore here. But because if you're going to play a long time at running back, the reason Frank didn't run people over. He got down, he got out of bounds, he made you miss. He just did not take hits. It's honestly the most underrated skill Frank Gore's career was like he did not end up in that many collisions. That was not really his game. He's not playing, you know, Skattebo's like George Kittle. It's like, oh shit, should I get out of bounds? Oh, I see three DBs over there. Let's lower my shoulder and go seek contact, which I'm not a huge fan of for running backs because I think it just shortens your career. But like if that's your skill set, that's your skill set, and you write it out. They took him in the fourth round. So if the Giants get a couple years of him playing well, like that's fine. That's all they're really looking for. If they get, I don't know, 40 games over the next 5 years of him playing at a high level, that they're good. I'm bullish on Skattebo for sure.